The deep space sensors started screaming at exactly 0347 hours. Something massive had just appeared at the edge of the solar system, something that should not be there. Admiral Daeho Kim was already awake when the emergency call came through. He had learned long ago that bad news never waited for morning. The holographic display in his quarters lit up, showing 200 red dots arranged in a perfect formation. Each dot represented a ship larger than anything humanity had ever built. "Get me visual confirmation," Daeho said, his voice steady despite the ice forming in his stomach. The screen shifted and he saw them. Alien warships. Real alien warships. Each one looked like a cathedral made of metal and strange purple light. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was not the answer anyone had hoped for. The aliens sent their message 6 hours later. It appeared on every screen across Earth, Mars, and the space stations. A creature appeared on the displays. It stood tall on 4 legs, with skin that looked like polished stone. Its face had too many eyes, and when it spoke, the words came through in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, and 50 other languages simultaneously. "Primitive species of Sol 3, the alien said. "I am High Executor Tharvix of the Valdris Imperium. Your system now belongs to the Imperium. You will surrender all military assets immediately. You will provide 30% of your population for labor assignments. You will grant us unlimited access to your planet's resources. In return, we will allow your species to continue existing under our protection. You have 72 hours to comply." The transmission ended. For almost 30 seconds, the entire planet was silent. Then everyone started talking at once. Ambassador Yoonji Park watched the message 3 times before she allowed herself to feel anything. Fear was natural. Panic was natural. But neither would help. She had negotiated peace treaties between nations that hated each other for centuries. She had prevented wars that could have killed millions. This was just another negotiation. A negotiation with aliens who could probably destroy Earth, but still just a negotiation. "They want to talk," she said to her staff. "That means they can be reasoned with." "They want us to surrender," her assistant replied. "That is not talking. That is demanding." Yoonji smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Everything is negotiation. They gave us 72 hours. That means they are willing to wait. If they truly wanted to destroy us, they would have started already. They want something from us alive. That gives us leverage." She was lying to herself, and she knew it. But lies that kept people calm were sometimes more valuable than truths that caused panic. General Hyunwoo Choi did not want to negotiate. He wanted to fight. The problem was that he had no idea how to fight something like this. Earth's military had trained for war against other humans. They had weapons designed to destroy human ships, human tanks, human soldiers. Nobody had weapons designed to fight aliens from beyond the stars. "What do we know about their capabilities?" he asked his intelligence officers. "Nothing, sir. We have visual data only. We can see their ships, but we do not know what weapons they carry, how fast they can move, or what their shields can withstand." "Then we need to find out," Hyunwoo said. "Get me Dr. Kang." Dr. Minho Kang was not a soldier. He was a scientist who designed weapons because someone had to, and he was better at it than anyone else. When General Choi called, Minho was already studying the alien ships through every telescope and sensor humanity possessed. "I need data," Minho said before the general could speak. "I need to know what these ships are made of, how they generate power, what frequencies their shields operate on. I need them to shoot something so I can analyze their weapons. Without data, I am guessing, and guesses get people killed. Can we win?" Hyunwoo asked. Minho was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know. But I know we will not win by doing what they expect. They have been doing this for a long time. They know how to conquer species like us. So we need to be a species unlike any they have conquered before." The negotiations began 48 hours after the ultimatum. Ambassador Yoonji Park traveled to a neutral meeting point, a hastily constructed space station between Mars and Jupiter. She brought a small delegation. The Valdris brought an army. High Executor Tharvix looked at Yoonji the way someone might look at an insect. Interesting, perhaps, but ultimately insignificant. "You are here to formalize your surrender," Tharvix said. "I am here to discuss terms," Yoonji replied calmly. Tharvix made a sound that might have been laughter. "There are no terms. There is only compliance or destruction. These are the only options the Imperium offers." "Then let me offer you a third option," Yunji said. You leave our system peacefully. You return to wherever you came from. And we all pretend this unfortunate misunderstanding never happened. The Valdris delegation stared at her. Then Tharvix made that laughing sound again, longer this time. Other Valdris joined in. You are amusing, Tharvix said. I see why your species has survived this long. You have courage even when courage is foolish. Very well. Let me demonstrate why your courage means nothing. The holographic display activated, showing an unmanned research station orbiting Saturn. The station was old, scheduled for decommissioning next year. It was empty except for some automated experiments. A beam of purple light reached out from the Valdris flagship. It touched the station for less than a second. The station exploded into vapor. That was 0.1% of our flagship's power, Tharvix explained. We have 200 ships. You have seen what one ship can do with minimal effort. Now you understand. Surrender, or we will demonstrate our full capabilities on a target you actually care about. Yunji kept her face carefully neutral, but inside she was smiling. The aliens had just made their first mistake. They had fired their weapons where humanity could analyze every detail. She stood up slowly. I will take your demonstration back to my government. But know this, High Executor Tharvix. Humanity has existed for over 200,000 years. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars that killed millions. We have clawed our way up from caves to the stars through determination and blood. You think showing us your weapons will make us afraid? You have only shown us that you can be hurt. And if you can be hurt, you can be killed. Tharvix's eyes narrowed. You have 72 hours. Use them wisely. Yunji returned to Earth. The moment she was back in the Coalition Command Center, she dropped the diplomatic mask. Dr. Kang, tell me you got what you needed. Minho's face appeared on the screen and he was grinning like a child on his birthday. I got everything. Their weapon operates on a focused particle beam, using what looks like a contained fusion reaction. The energy signature is incredibly clean, very efficient, but that efficiency means it operates on a very specific frequency range. I can design countermeasures. I can design shields that will disperse that energy. Give me 36 hours. You have 12, Admiral Deho said, entering the room. Because we are not waiting for their deadline. We are going to hit them first, and we are going to hit them hard. Yunji looked at him. Are you certain this is wise? We do not know if we can win. Deho pulled up a star chart. I have been studying military history my entire life. Every successful defense against a superior force has one thing in common. They do not fight the way the enemy expects. The Valdris expect us to cower. They expect us to beg. They expect us to fight like primitives with primitive weapons. So we will show them what a species that has been fighting itself for its entire existence can really do. He pressed a button, and encrypted signals went out to every coalition military installation in the solar system. Hidden bases inside asteroids powered up. Weapons platforms disguised as satellites activated. Ships that had been waiting in the dark between planets lit their engines. Protocol Broken Arrow is active, Deho announced. All units report ready for combat. General Hyunwoo looked at the displays showing thousands of military assets appearing across the solar system. How long have we been preparing for this? Since the day we reached the stars, Deho replied. Humanity has always known that anything we can do, someone else might be able to do better. So we prepared. We built weapons. We trained soldiers. We turned our entire solar system into a fortress just in case. The Valdris think they are invading a primitive world. They are actually invading the most heavily defended star system in the galaxy. They just do not know it yet. Captain Ji-Won Lee sat in her fighter, hands steady on the controls despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She was 28 years old and had been flying combat simulations since she was 16. She had always been the best. She had always won. But those had been simulations against other humans. Now she was about to fight aliens. Real aliens with real weapons who wanted to enslave or kill everyone she had ever known. Her radio crackled. All fighters, this is Admiral Kim. In approximately 4 hours, the Valdris fleet will begin their advance toward Earth. They believe they will face either immediate surrender or token resistance. Hour 68 of the ultimatum arrived with the Valdris fleet moving forward in perfect formation. High Executor Tharvix watched his tactical display with satisfaction. The primitive humans had not responded to his generous offer. Very well. They would learn through pain what they refused to learn through mercy. The fleet advanced past Neptune, then Uranus. The humans remained silent. No communications, No weapons fire. No desperate pleas for negotiation. Just silence. They are paralyzed with fear, War Master Kelrin observed. This will be the fastest conquest in Imperium history. Tharvix nodded. Maintain formation. When we reach their homeworld, we will begin with their military installations. Destruction of 30% should convince them to surrender. Then we can begin the harvest. The fleet crossed into the asteroid belt. On every Valdris ship, sensors showed nothing but rocks, and a few primitive mining stations. Harmless, irrelevant. The path to Earth was clear. Then the asteroids opened fire. What the Valdris had thought were simple, mining stations suddenly revealed their true nature. Massive railguns emerged from camouflaged openings. Missile silos that had been hidden for decades activated. Energy weapons that should not exist on a primitive world began tracking Valdris ships. The first railgun slug hit a Valdris cruiser at exactly 0.3 times the speed of light. The ship's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and slow-moving missiles, did absolutely nothing against a solid tungsten rod moving at relativistic speeds. The cruiser simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the molecular level by the kinetic impact. 3 more ships exploded in the next 10 seconds. Evasive maneuvers, Kelrin shouted. Return fire on those stations. But the asteroid fortresses were not static targets. Each one could maneuver using hidden thrusters. They scattered, making targeting difficult, and they kept firing. Then came the fighters. Captain Jiwan Li led her squadron out of a hiding position behind a large asteroid. 400 Coalition fighters had been waiting there for 2 days, powered down, invisible to Valdris sensors. Now they ignited their engines and accelerated toward the alien fleet at speeds that would have killed most organic species. But humans were different. Humanity had spent centuries developing inertial dampening technology and training pilots to withstand high-gravity maneuvers. G1 pulled 9 Gs in a turn that brought her fighter screaming past a Valdris destroyer. Her railguns fired a 3-second burst, small projectiles but traveling so fast they punched through the destroyer's shields like they were paper. The destroyer lost power and began drifting. First kill, G1 shouted over the radio. Who wants second? Her squadron answered with action. Coalition fighters swarmed the Valdris fleet like angry insects. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were carefully choreographed chaos. Valdris gunners tried to track them and failed. The human ships simply moved too fast, turned too quickly, and attacked from too many directions at once. War Master Kelrin watched his tactical display with growing horror. In 15 minutes of combat, his fleet had lost 23 ships. 23 ships? The Imperium had not lost 23 ships in the last 50 years combined. What are these creatures? He whispered. Humans, Tharvix replied, his voice cold with rage. Primitives who should be cowering before us. Order all ships to concentrate fire. Ignore the small craft. Target their bases in the asteroid belt. But Admiral Daeho Kim had anticipated that response. As the Valdris ships turned their attention to the asteroid fortresses, a new threat emerged. Coalition warships, which had been running dark throughout the solar system, suddenly powered up their systems. 50 human ships appeared on Valdris sensors, positioned in a perfect ambush formation. They were smaller than Valdris vessels, but they carried weapons that Dr. Minho Kang had specifically designed to counter Valdris technology. Minho had spent every hour since the demonstration at Saturn analyzing the alien weapons. He had discovered something wonderful. The Valdris shields operated on a narrow frequency band, extremely efficient but also extremely vulnerable to specific attacks. Coalition weapons had been recalibrated to exploit that weakness. When the Coalition warships opened fire, Valdris shields flickered and failed. Missiles that should have been deflected slammed into hulls. Energy beams that should have been absorbed burned through armor. The technological advantage the Valdris had relied on for thousands of years suddenly meant nothing. A Valdris destroyer exploded, then another. A cruiser lost power and began tumbling. A battleship took multiple hits and split in half. All ships retreat, Kelrin ordered. Fall back and regroup. We do not retreat, Tharvix snarled. The Imperium never retreats. The Imperium never faced an enemy like this, Kelrin shot back. We have lost 40 ships, Executor. 40. If we do not withdraw, we will lose the entire fleet. Tharvix wanted to argue, but he could not deny the numbers on his display. The humans were destroying his fleet. The primitives were winning. Very well, he said, each word tasting like poison. Order a fighting withdrawal toward Jupiter. We will regroup there and plan our next attack. But Admiral Deho had no intention of letting them regroup peacefully. As the Valdris fleet turned toward Jupiter, more coalition ships appeared. These had been positioned specifically for this moment. The Valdris were not retreating to safety. They were being herded into a trap. General Hyunwoo Choi coordinated the orbital weapons platforms positioned throughout the solar system. These platforms had been disguised as scientific instruments, weather satellites, and communication relays. In reality, each one was a weapon system capable of striking targets millions of miles away. As the Valdris fleet passed certain coordinates, Hyunwoo gave the order. All platforms fire on designated targets. Make every shot count. Beams of concentrated energy lanced across space. More railgun slugs accelerated toward the alien ships. The Valdris tried to defend themselves, but they were already damaged, already demoralized, and now they were being attacked from directions they had not even considered. Ji-won and her squadron pursued the fleeing Valdris fleet, harassing them constantly. Every time the aliens tried to organize a defense, human fighters would dart in, fire a burst, and disappear. The Valdris had never experienced this kind of warfare. They were used to organized fleet battles, not this chaos of individual attacks coming from everywhere and nowhere. This is not war, one Valdris captain transmitted to Kelrin. This is madness. These humans fight without honor, without formation, without any sense of proper military conduct. Kelrin almost laughed. Honor, formation, proper conduct. Those were luxuries for species that had the advantage. The humans did not have the advantage in numbers or technology, so they fought with speed, cunning, and a viciousness that the Valdris had never encountered. The Valdris fleet reached Jupiter's orbit, and that was when they discovered the mines. Dr. Minho Kang had spent months seeding Jupiter's approach vectors with autonomous mine clusters, not simple explosives. These were fusion-pumped antimatter warheads, each one carrying enough destructive power to vaporize a Valdris destroyer. The mines had been waiting dormant, invisible to sensors, programmed to activate only when specific conditions were met. Those conditions were now met. The first mine cluster detonated near a Valdris cruiser. The explosion was blinding, a miniature sun blooming in the darkness of space. When the light faded, the cruiser was gone. Simply gone, not damaged, not destroyed. Erased from existence, then another mine detonated, and another, and another. The Valdris fleet scattered, trying to avoid the minefield, but the mines were designed to be unavoidable. They repositioned themselves, tracking the alien ships, detonating at optimal ranges. 23 more Valdris ships died in the minefield. Some tried to shoot the mines before they could detonate, but that only made things worse. Shooting an antimatter warhead was like trying to safely defuse a bomb by hitting it with a hammer. War Master Kelrin made a decision that would haunt him forever. All ships maximum acceleration. Abandon formation. Escape Jupiter's orbit by any means necessary. It was not a tactical withdrawal. It was not a strategic retreat. It was a rout. The proud Valdris Imperium, conqueror of 800 star systems, ran away from a single primitive species. Admiral Deho watched the aliens flee and felt no triumph. Only cold calculation. All ships cease pursuit at Mars orbit. Let them run. We want survivors to carry the message back to their empire. Yoonji appeared on his display. Is it wise to let them escape? They will return with reinforcements. Yes, Deho agreed. They will return with everything they have. And when they do, we will be ready. But first they need to tell their leaders what happened here. They need to spread fear. Fear is a weapon, Ambassador, perhaps our most powerful one. 18 hours after the battle began, the Valdris expeditionary fleet limped out of the solar system. They had arrived with 200 ships. They left with 89, 111 ships destroyed, thousands of Valdris warriors dead, and they had not even reached Earth. High Executor Tharvix sat in his command chair staring at nothing. He had fought in 30 campaigns. He had conquered 12 species. He had never lost. And now he had been defeated by creatures that should have been his slaves. 4 days had passed since the Valdris fleet retreated. What remained of their forces had established a defensive position near Mars, using Deimos, one of the planet's moons, as a temporary stronghold. They were wounded, afraid, and waiting for orders that would never come. High Executor Tharvix knew his career was finished. The Imperium did not forgive failure, but he no longer cared about his career. He cared about survival. His fleet was broken, his warriors demoralized, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. On Earth, the Terran coalition was just beginning to reveal what humanity could truly do when fully mobilized. Admiral Dai-Ho Kim stood before a holographic display showing the entire solar system. Red markers indicated Valdris positions. Blue markers showed human forces. There were far more blue markers than there had been 4 days ago. Hundreds more. "Show them," Dai-Ho said quietly. The display changed, revealing what had been hidden. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, massive submarine carriers rose toward the surface. Each one held 200 fighters. There were 37 carriers. That was 7,400 more fighters that the Valdris knew nothing about. In orbit around Earth, satellites that had been transmitting weather data and television signals suddenly transformed. Panels fell away, revealing weapons platforms. Humanity had been hiding guns in space for decades, disguised as peaceful technology. The Valdris sensors had seen civilian satellites. They had not seen the weapon systems hidden inside them. On the moon, massive doors opened in the surface. What emerged looked like enormous cannons pointed at the sky. These were mass drivers, electromagnetic catapults that could launch projectiles at incredible speeds. They had been built under the pretense of mining operations. In reality, they were siege weapons capable of hitting targets anywhere in the solar system. Throughout the asteroid belt, hundreds of automated defense drones activated. These machines had been dormant for years, waiting for the signal to wake up. Now they formed a network of sensors and weapons that made the belt itself into a deadly maze for any enemy trying to pass through. Dr. Minho Kang watched this revelation with quiet pride. "We have been preparing for this scenario since we reached the stars. Every nation contributed. Every military force shared technology. We knew that if we ever met aliens, they would either be friends or threats. We hoped for friends. We prepared for threats." General Hyunwoo Choi looked at the numbers. "How many military assets do we actually have?" Minho pulled up another display. 4,000 fighters, 300 warships, 800 weapons platforms, 15,000 automated drones, and every planetary body in this system has been fortified. Mars has underground bases. Europa has weapons hidden in the ice. Even Venus has orbital weapons platforms that can withstand the heat and pressure. The Valdris thought they were invading one planet. They are actually invading an entire star system that has been militarized over decades. Yoonji Park joined the meeting, looking exhausted but determined. "What about the Valdris on Deimos? They are fortified there. 30,000 troops, according to our intelligence." Hyunwoo smiled. "Let me handle Deimos. I have a plan that will teach them why invading human-held territory is a very bad idea." The assault on Deimos began 6 hours later. The Valdris defenders expected a frontal assault. They had weapons positioned at every approach vector, energy shields covering their installations and troops ready to repel boarders. General Hyunwoo did not give them a frontal assault. He gave them something they had never experienced before: human ground combat doctrine. First, coalition ships established a complete blockade around Deimos. Nothing in, nothing out. The Valdris were trapped, cut off from the rest of their fleet. They could hold their position, but they could not retreat and they could not receive reinforcements. Then came the Marines. Not in large assault ships that the Valdris could target. In small boarding pods that launched from multiple directions simultaneously. Each pod carried 10 Marines in powered armor. The armor was something the Valdris had never seen before. It enhanced human strength, provided protection against weapons fire, and allowed Marines to fight in zero gravity with perfect mobility. The boarding pods attached to Deimos like ticks on an animal. Marines cut through the moon's surface and entered the Valdris installations. What followed was not a battle. It was a lesson in close-quarters combat perfected over thousands of years of human warfare. The Valdris were elite warriors who had conquered dozens of species. But they had never fought opponents like humans. The Marines used tactics that range from ancient shield wall formations adapted for zero gravity to modern urban warfare techniques. They moved in small teams, supporting each other, communicating constantly through encrypted channels. When Valdris troops tried to form a defensive line, the Marines used flanking maneuvers. When the Valdris tried to spread out, the Marines concentrated their forces and broke through weak points. When the Valdris tried to fight in the narrow tunnels of Deimos, The Marines used breaching charges and came through the walls. One Valdris commander transmitted a desperate message. How do they know what we will do before we do it? How are they always in the right position? The answer was simple. Humans had been fighting humans for so long that they had learned to predict how intelligent enemies would respond. Every tactic the Valdris used, humans had used against each other centuries ago. And humans had developed counters to those tactics. 4 hours after the assault began, the Valdris forces on Deimos surrendered. They had lost 8,000 troops. The coalition Marines had lost 200. The survivors told their commanders the same thing. We cannot fight these creatures. They fight like they can read our minds. They know war better than we ever could. While the battle for Deimos raged, Ambassador Yunji Park launched a different kind of attack. A psychological one. She broadcast a message to the remaining Valdris fleet. Not threats, information. She showed them humanity's history. Images of ancient battles, medieval warfare, world wars that killed millions. She showed them nuclear weapons, biological warfare, chemical attacks. She showed them what humans had done to each other over thousands of years. This is what we are, Yunji said calmly. We have fought ourselves since we learned to make weapons. We have refined warfare into an art form. Every defensive technology, every tactical doctrine, every strategic principle has been tested in blood. We did not become warriors because we wanted to. We became warriors because we had no choice. And now you have given us a common enemy. You have united us. You have done what our own leaders could never quite achieve. You have made humanity stop fighting itself and start fighting you. That was your mistake? She paused, letting the images sink in. But we are not monsters. We do not want to conquer you. We do not want to enslave you. We want you to leave. Leave our system. Return to your empire. Tell them what happened here. And never come back. If you do this, you will live. If you refuse, you will join the 111 ships we have already destroyed. Choose wisely. The psychological warfare worked. Some Valdris ships began to defect. Their crews would rather face punishment from the Imperium than continue fighting humanity. They disabled their weapons and transmitted surrender codes. High Executor Tharvix watched his fleet dissolve around him. Ships surrendering. Ships fleeing. Ships refusing to follow orders. The Valdris military had never experienced mutiny before. They were experiencing it now. In desperation, Tharvix made a decision that would seal his fate. If he could not conquer Earth, he would destroy it. His flagship still had enough power for one final attack. He would ram the ship into Earth at maximum speed. The impact would kill billions. It would not win the war, but it would hurt humanity enough to make his failure mean something. All power to engines, he ordered. Set course for Sol 3, maximum acceleration. But Admiral Deho had been watching Tharvix carefully. He understood desperate enemies. He had been studying the Executor's psychological profile since the first battle, and he knew exactly what Tharvix would do when everything else failed. Coalition ships were already in position along the Valdris flagship's projected course. As Tharvix's ship accelerated toward Earth, it ran into a carefully prepared ambush. Not explosives, not missiles, electromagnetic pulse weapons that Coalition engineers had designed specifically for this scenario. The EMP wave washed over the Valdris flagship, and every system died. Power, weapons, life support, communication. Everything went dark. The ship became a drifting hulk, its crew trapped inside without any way to call for help. Coalition Marines boarded the flagship 6 hours later. They found Tharvix on his command bridge, sitting in darkness, waiting. He did not resist when they took him into custody. He was the first High Executor in Valdris history to be captured alive by an enemy species. You have won, Tharvix said to the Marine commander, but my people will not accept this defeat. They will come back. They will bring thousands of ships, and they will destroy you. The Marine, a young woman named Corporal Hanasong, looked at him with something like pity. Let them come. We will be ready. 5 days after the conflict began, the Valdris Expeditionary Fleet ceased to exist as a military force. 147 ships destroyed. 6 weeks after the failed invasion, the 12 surviving Valdris ships finally reached their home territory. What they brought back was not just news of defeat. They brought terror. Valdris Prime, the capital world of an empire that had stood for 12,000 years, erupted into chaos. The Grand Council, composed of the 12 most powerful leaders in Valdris society, convened an emergency session. They sat in a chamber that had witnessed the planning of countless conquests. Now it witnessed something new. Panic. War Master Kelrin stood before them, still wearing his battle-damaged armor. He had survived the retreat from human space, but the experience had changed him. His hands shook as he displayed the combat recordings. The humans destroyed 147 ships, Kelrin said. They captured 41 more, including High Executor Tharvix himself. They fought with weapons and tactics we have never encountered. They turned their entire star system into a fortress. And they did all of this while suffering minimal losses. The Grand Council members looked at each other in disbelief. One of them, an elder named Counselor Vex, spoke. "This is impossible. We have conquered 847 star systems. No species has ever defeated us. You must be exaggerating your failure to save face." Kelrin's eyes flashed with anger. "I am not exaggerating. I wish I were. These humans are unlike anything we have fought before. Every species we have conquered surrendered quickly or fought with primitive weapons. The humans had railguns that fire projectiles at relativistic speeds. They had fighters that move faster than our targeting systems can track. They had tactics that seemed designed specifically to counter our every move. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. Our massacre. Then we will send a larger force, another counselor declared. The solution is simple. Overwhelming numbers. They defeated 200 ships. They cannot defeat 3,000, Kelrin wanted to scream. These fools did not understand. Numbers meant nothing if your enemy could think faster, move quicker, and fight smarter. But he was just a war master. The council made the decisions, and they had already decided. The Second Fleet began assembling. 3,000 warships pulled from defensive positions across the Empire. It was the largest military force the Valdris had gathered in centuries. At its heart were the 10 Worldbreaker-class dreadnoughts, each one 5 miles long and capable of destroying entire planets. Supreme War Master Draxion took command. He was a legend among the Valdris military. 200 campaigns, 200 victories. He had fought species that used biological weapons, species that controlled gravity, species that could move through dimensions. He had defeated them all. He studied the reports from the First Fleet with cold calculation. The humans are clever, he admitted. They fight unconventionally, but every species has weaknesses. We simply need to find theirs and exploit them. Draxion developed new tactics. He improved shields specifically calibrated to counter human railguns, point defense systems designed to track fast-moving fighters, massive fighter screens to provide early warning and defense. He adapted, learned, and prepared. 6 weeks after the First Fleet's defeat, the Second Fleet departed for human space. Draxion was confident. The humans had won through surprise and preparation. This time the Valdris would be the ones who were prepared. Meanwhile, humanity had not been idle. The entire coalition industrial complex had shifted to war production. Dr. Minho Kang and his research teams worked around the clock, combining captured Valdris technology with human innovation. The result was a new generation of ships. They incorporated Valdris faster-than-light drives, allowing human vessels to travel between stars. They used Valdris shield technology enhanced with human modifications, and they carried weapons that were pure human design, deadly, efficient, and terrifying. Admiral Daeho Kim studied intelligence reports about the approaching Valdris fleet. 3,000 ships, 10 dreadnoughts. It was by any measure an overwhelming force. Coalition strategists ran simulations. Every simulation ended the same way. If humanity tried to defend Earth directly, they would lose. So Daeho decided not to defend Earth directly. "We will not wait for them to come to us," he announced in a strategy meeting. "We will take the fight to them. While their fleet advances toward Earth, we will attack their territory. We will hit their colonies, their supply lines, their infrastructure. We will show them that threatening Earth has consequences." General Hyunwoo immediately understood. Asymmetric warfare. We cannot match their numbers, so we make them fight on multiple fronts. Force them to defend everything while we can strike anywhere. "Exactly," Daeho confirmed. "Captain Lee, you will lead a task force of 200 ships. Your mission is to raid Valdris border colonies, destroy military installations, free any conquered species you find, make the Valdris Empire bleed." Commodore Ji-1 Lee, promoted after her success in the first battle, accepted the mission with a grim smile. "When do we leave?" "Immediately," Daeho replied. "The Valdris fleet will reach our solar system in 4 weeks. I want them to arrive knowing that while they attack us, we are tearing apart their empire. Jiwan's task force launched using the newly developed FTL drives. What had once been an impossible journey now took days instead of centuries. They arrived at the first Valdris colony and found it lightly defended. Most military forces had been pulled away to join the Second Fleet. The attack was swift and brutal. Coalition ships emerged from FTL right on top of the colony's defenses. The Valdris defenders tried to organize a response, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. Within 6 hours, every military installation in the system was destroyed. But Jiwan did not stop there. She broadcast a message to the colony's inhabitants, many of whom were conquered species forced to work for the Valdris. You are free. The Valdris Empire can no longer protect you. Take this opportunity, rebel, fight for your independence. Earth stands with all free species. The message spread like fire. On dozens of Valdris-controlled worlds, enslaved species rose up in rebellion. Some succeeded, some failed, but all of them caused chaos that the Valdris could not ignore. Meanwhile, Supreme War Master Draxion and his fleet approached Earth's solar system. His scouts reported something strange. No massive military buildup. No fleet waiting in defensive formation. Just 400 human ships scattered throughout the system. They are not even trying to defend, one of Draxion's officers observed. This will be easier than expected. Draxion was not so certain. Something felt wrong. The humans had proven themselves to be clever fighters. Why would they abandon their defensive advantage? Where was the rest of their fleet? The answer came when his communication systems intercepted human broadcasts. Coalition forces were raiding Valdris territory. Multiple colonies under attack. Rebellions breaking out. The Empire's infrastructure crumbling. Draxion realized the human strategy. They could not win a direct confrontation, so they were not trying to. They were attacking everywhere else, forcing the Valdris to make an impossible choice. Pursue the attack on Earth or return home to defend the Empire. But Draxion had his orders. Take Earth. Nothing else mattered. He would complete his mission, then deal with the raids afterward. The Battle of Sol began with Draxion's fleet entering the asteroid belt. This time the Valdris were ready for the hidden fortresses. They had mapped every asteroid, identified every potential threat, and assigned ships to destroy them before they could fire. But Admiral Deho had anticipated this. The asteroids were not where humanity's main defense would come from. They were just distractions. The real defense emerged from the outer solar system. Coalition ships that had been hiding in the darkness beyond Neptune suddenly activated. They used the same tactics that had worked before. Small groups, hit-and-run attacks, constant movement, unpredictable patterns. Draxion's improved defenses helped. His point defense system shot down many human fighters. His enhanced shields held longer against railgun fire. But the humans adapted in real time. They changed tactics constantly, never doing the same thing twice, always finding new ways to attack. The world-breaker dreadnoughts advanced toward Earth, shrugging off attacks that would have destroyed smaller ships. These massive vessels seemed unstoppable. Their weapons could sterilize planets. Their shields could withstand almost anything humanity could throw at them. Almost anything. Dr. Minho had designed special ships specifically to kill dreadnoughts. Coalition destroyers that sacrificed everything for speed and firepower. They were not meant to survive combat. They were meant to take down giants and die trying. The first destroyer accelerated to maximum speed and rammed a world breaker. The collision did minimal damage to the massive dreadnought. But the destroyer's cargo, a massive antimatter warhead, detonated at point-blank range. The world breaker's shields collapsed. The dreadnought did not explode. It simply stopped working, dead in space. 9 more destroyers repeated the tactic. It was a suicide mission. Every destroyer crew knew they would not survive. But they did it anyway because that is what humans did. They sacrificed themselves to protect their home. 5 world breakers were destroyed. 4 survived, heavily damaged but still functional. They continued toward Earth, but their advance had been Day 14 since the second invasion began. The Valdris Second Fleet was in ruins. 3,000 ships had entered human space. 89 limped away. Supreme War Master Draxion was dead. All 10 world-breaker dreadnoughts were destroyed. The Valdris Imperium had lost over 6,000 ships in total, counting both invasions. For an empire that had conquered the galaxy, it was a catastrophic defeat. On Valdris Prime, the Grand Council met in emergency session for the 3rd time in 6 weeks. But this time there was no debate about strategy. There was only fear and chaos. Counselors shouted at each other, blaming everyone but themselves. The empire they had ruled for 12,000 years was collapsing around them. Rebellions had erupted on 200 worlds. Species that the Valdris had conquered centuries ago remembered their independence and wanted it back. Without the military strength to suppress these uprisings, the Valdris could only watch as their empire fractured. Worlds that had provided tribute for generations now declared independence. Trade routes that had sustained the Valdris economy collapsed. The entire structure of the Imperium, built on conquest and fear, was falling apart. Counselor Vex, one of the few remaining members with any authority, spoke. "We must negotiate with the humans. We have no choice. Our military is destroyed. Our economy is failing. Our subject species are in open rebellion. If we continue fighting, humanity will not even need to destroy us. We will destroy ourselves." Another counselor, younger and more aggressive, responded. "Negotiate? Surrender to primitives? The Imperium has never surrendered in 12,000 years. We would rather die than bow to inferior species." "Then we will die," Vex said coldly. "Is that what you want? Pride will not save us. Only pragmatism can. We need to accept reality. Humanity has beaten us." The council argued for hours, but eventually reality won. They could not continue fighting. They had nothing left to fight with. The decision was made, though it felt like poison in their mouths. The Valdris Imperium would sue for peace. Ambassador Yunji Park received the Valdris surrender request while coordinating humanitarian aid to newly liberated worlds. She read the message 3 times, not because she did not understand it, but because she wanted to make sure it was real. The mighty Valdris Imperium, conqueror of 800 star systems, was asking for terms. She called an emergency meeting of coalition leadership. Admiral Daeho Kim, General Hyunwoo Choi, and Dr. Minho Kang all appeared on her display. Commodore Jiwan Lee joined from her ship still on patrol near former Valdris territory. "They want to negotiate," Yunji said. "They are calling it a diplomatic discussion, but we all know what it is. Surrender." "What are they offering?" Hyunwoo asked. Yunji pulled up the Valdris proposal. "They want to retain sovereignty over their traditional territories. They are willing to acknowledge Earth's independence. They promise not to attack us again. In exchange, they want us to stop supporting rebellions in their space and withdraw our forces from their borders." "That is not surrender," Jiwan said immediately. "That is them pretending they still have power to negotiate. They want to keep their empire and just leave us alone. We should reject it." Daeho nodded in agreement. "The Valdris problem is not just about Earth. Every species they have enslaved deserves freedom. If we let them keep their empire, we are just postponing the next war. In 10 years, 20 years, they will rebuild and try again. Next time, they might succeed. Then what do we demand?" Yunji asked. Dr. Minho answered. "Complete dissolution of the Valdris Imperium. They keep their home system and nothing else. Every conquered world becomes independent. Every enslaved species becomes free. And the Valdris pay reparations to those they have harmed. Not just resources, technology, knowledge, everything," General Hyunwoo added. "And war crimes tribunals. The Grand Council members who ordered the invasions must face justice. We cannot let them walk away without consequences." Yunji considered their suggestions. They were harsh but fair. The Valdris had come to conquer and enslave humanity. They had threatened the entire human species with extinction. Mercy was appropriate, but so was justice. "I will prepare our counteroffer," she said, "but we need leverage to make them accept it." "Daeho, can we threaten their homeworld if necessary?" "We can do more than threaten," Daeho replied. "We can blockade Valdris Prime, cut them off completely. No trade, no communication, no resources from their former colonies. They will starve within months." "Then do it," Yunji ordered. "Show them we are serious." The coalition fleet moved into position around Valdris Prime. 600 ships, including vessels from 47 newly liberated species, who wanted to participate in the downfall of their former oppressors. The Valdris homeworld was completely isolated, trapped in their own system. On the planet's surface, the Valdris population began to panic. Food supplies dwindled. Medical resources ran low. Communication with the outside galaxy ceased. The Grand Council had led them into a war that had destroyed their empire, and now they were paying the price. Riots broke out in the streets. Valdris citizens demanded answers. Why had the Council started this war? Why had they not listened to War Master Kelrin's warnings? Why were they suffering for the Council's mistakes? The Grand Council realized they had no choice. Pride had led them to this disaster. Only humility could save them now. They accepted humanity's terms. Ambassador Yunji Park traveled to Valdris Prime with a delegation that included representatives from 89 liberated species. It was important that the Valdris see this was not just humanity's victory. It was a victory for everyone they had oppressed. The signing ceremony took place in the same chamber where the Grand Council had ordered the invasions. Now that chamber witnessed the formal dissolution of the Valdris Imperium. The terms were read aloud, and each one felt like a blade cutting into Valdris pride. The Valdris Imperium would cease to exist as a political entity. All conquered territories would become independent, with coalition support to establish stable governments. The Valdris military would be limited to a defensive force of no more than 100 ships. Valdris Prime would pay reparations in resources and technology for the next 50 years. Members of the Grand Council who had ordered the invasions would face trial for war crimes. Councillor Vex signed the treaty on behalf of the Valdris. His hand shook as he made the mark that officially ended 12,000 years of empire. When he finished, he looked at Ambassador Park. "You have won," he said quietly. "You have destroyed us. I hope you are satisfied." Yunji met his gaze without flinching. "We did not destroy you. You destroyed yourselves. You came to our home with threats and weapons. You tried to enslave us. You forced us to fight. Everything that has happened is the consequence of your choices, not ours. We did not want this war, but once you started it, we finished it." She paused, then added, "But we are not here to gloat. We are here to build something better, a galaxy where species can exist without fear of conquest, where freedom is protected, not destroyed. The Valdris can be part of that future if you choose to learn from this, or you can remain isolated and bitter. The choice is yours." The treaty was signed. The Valdris Imperium officially ended. Across former Valdris space, celebrations erupted. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were finally free. They sang, danced, and cried tears of joy. Some burned effigies of Valdris leaders. Others simply stood in silence, unable to believe that their nightmare was over. Admiral Daeho Kim watched the celebrations from his ship. He felt satisfaction but also exhaustion. The war had cost humanity 178 ships and over 20,000 lives. They had won, but victory had not been cheap. General Hyunwoo joined him on the bridge. "What happens now? We have freed the galaxy from the Valdris, but there are probably other empires out there. Other threats we have not met yet." "Then we prepare," Daeho replied. "We continue building. We continue training. And we make sure that if anyone else comes threatening Earth, they face the same fate as the Valdris. We do not seek empire. We do not want to conquer. But we will defend ourselves and our allies with everything we have." Dr. Minho was already thinking about the future. The captured Valdris technology had given humanity advancements that would have taken centuries to develop on their own. FTL travel, advanced shields, energy weapons. He was already working on ways to improve these technologies, to combine Valdris science with human innovation. "We are no longer isolated," Minho said to his research team. "We are part of a galactic community, and that means we have responsibilities. We need to share our technology with the species we have liberated, help them defend themselves, ensure that no new empire can rise to threaten them." Commodore Ji-1 Lee accepted a new position as commander of the Coalition Fleet Academy. Her mission was to train the next generation of defenders, not just from Earth but from all the liberated worlds. Species that had never known freedom were now learning to protect it. Ji-1 taught them everything humanity had learned about warfare, tactics, and strategy. "Fighting is not about being stronger," she told her students, a mix of humans and dozens of alien species. "Fighting is about being smarter, about adapting faster than your enemy, about never giving up even when the odds seem impossible. Humanity survived for thousands of